communications and with human resources. We just wanted to give, you know, this is kind of on the spot, so no pressure, but if Jeff and Leanna have any thoughts about the two different firms, you know, any perspectives you want to lend, or just wanted to, before we keep processing.
Sure, I guess the only thing I would say about, I don't know a lot about either firm. A couple of the large district searches that McPherson and Jacobson did, I would check into more. One is the federal wage search. I think the superintendent that was selected for that was the one that ended up resigning a year ago, and there were several articles about it, so you might want to look into that. And I would be curious whether the Bellevue search was the one that ended up with Amalia Cudero, who didn't last very long there either. It was fairly controversial superintendent. I don't know that that's the one we did, but I would want to know that, because those are two searches with peer districts that did not make what I would consider good results from the boards. Just want to.
That's good.
Then, or excuse me, Rain Associates, I think is it seems like they have a more national reach. They have a staff. They're more sophisticated. They have a lot more tools. They don't have a local connection. And that is a fairly, as Ken pointed out, a fairly clear distinction between the two. There are some nice things about Rain Associates at the level of sophistication and reach that you would want to do. That's my opinion.
That's very good feedback.
Thank you.
I agree.
Do you have any thoughts, Leanna, about one versus the other?
So both firms, highly qualified firms. So I'm not surprised by the information that they've shared. Having been a part of two superintendent searches in the past, I understand the role of communications and what that entails. And I have worked with one of the search firms previously in the superintendent search process, but great quality firms.
And it was a good experience?
Yes, it was.
Do you mind sharing which one?
Rain Associates.
Can I just add one thing about the interim thing? One of the things you might want to think about, what I heard from them was the stopping the search, permanent search process to do an interim was they were worried about what that was communicating to the applicants. So I think that was what their issue was about that, which why they suggested what they would do is put it on hold.
Yeah.
So it's not to say, we looked at all you, we don't like you, we're going to go with an interim. That is that when you abort a search like that, it communicates something to applicants, and not only those applicants, but future applicants that they would want you to consider.
But would an applicant hearing, you know, that it's being put on hold to be able to do more outreach or whatever, do you think that would also go over well?
That can be used as a strategy to say we've decided we've come to this point, we want to see more candidates, we don't have time, we're going to appoint an interim and continue this process in the fall. That's a different communication. So,
Can we ask Alan?
Of course.
If you had thoughts.
I didn't hear either of them say anything about technology.
Did you like the video interviews though? Did you do some platform?
Yeah, I mean, I had no feelings one way or the other about the video. I mean, it's a video, but I'm not prepared to give any kind of feedback.
Well, you were the only, I didn't want to leave you out though.
The one thing I would say is, I think the feedback of anonymity until you get to a certain level in the process, having been involved in a couple of searches like that, that's a nice thing to say. And if you're a candidate and you're applying, it's nice to know that you're not going to be asked to burn your bridges by putting your name.
And Cindy, was there any difference interacting with them as they were making arrangements for today?
Very pleasant.
Okay, very professional.
But I saw your head shaking on the anonymity.
I like that too. I think it just seems like their reasoning is pretty sure that you will probably get better people and more people if they're not really for their name now. If their name's going to get splashed all over, nobody's going to protect that until it's really necessary to share it. I just think that shows a lot of respect. I don't know that Al Cohen has a different strategy from that. I'm not sure I really heard. He wanted more transparency, and that's when I started. I thought transparency is good, but I worried about the issue that Ray and Associates are trying to deal with. And I'm not sure how Al actually operates in that, but he seemed, he was pretty adamant about transparency, so that was a striking difference in
And when, to speak to that really quick, you remember, I heard about, because I do agree with what you guys are saying, I heard about Larry back in December and didn't share it, right? That kind of bothered me, that people were talking about it when that should have been, you know what I'm saying? So
It should have been
I do agree with that when you're applying as a high-level position, right? I think there's a certain level of that that's professionalism.
Professional.
Yeah.
So since you're sharing input, Leanna and Cindy, we've heard conversations about workload over the next couple of months of this process. You guys have a sense of what we're getting into and
I have no idea, I've never been through that from this end of it, so Leanna's, I'm sure, got more experience,
Yes.
she's already done it.
you feel confident
But
Yeah.
we're ready for
We're-
this and.
It sounds like the board is open to finding some temp help, if it would be, you know,
I would
logistically assisted.
say we're ready for this.
Okay.
It's important work and we're gonna get it done.
But do you think it would be helpful to hire a retired, if we could get Jan Ott back to kind of field the,
I would say let's talk, let's identify the firm and then figure out kind of where you as a board are going, and then we can determine that plan.
Yeah,
I think it's
you guys
doable. And then we determine what kind of help we need.
okay.
Okay, well, I would say given that. Boy, that was very helpful, thank you. So I wasn't 100% sold, but I'm willing to go with Ray and Associates. My two concerns, and I think the community engagement, we just need to be very clear that that's really important to us, and that I'm not worried that we as a board wouldn't be communicating. They're still on the spring break thing, so we have to get that
Right.
cleared up. But my fear, I guess, is that we're in a situation where we're being, I'm going to feel like I'm being railroaded into choosing a permanent superintendent because there's been no processing done for an interim and we have no choice and here's what's available. And so that's my fear. And I just, anything that kind of relieves that, and that's why I liked and we've been working on the interim. So I can get something from them that explains how that process works so that I'm not feeling like I have to choose from these 8 people, even though I'm not really liking any of them because we have no plan in place.
I did have in my notes that Ray and Associates said that Ryan, you'd already heard from 4 possible interim.
Right. So I just need some of that comfort,
We could get
knowing
more-
that,
more
okay,
details.
I'm not going to have to pick from the brown bananas, if you will. Yeah.
So I was indifferent until I did my walk, and I was leaning in the direction of Ray, thinking about some of the other pieces. I share the concern about the interim, and I think so when we talk with them to draft the final contract letter, they said we want to keep that interim option open. And the thing I did hear from all the people I talked to, but especially the ones that worked with Ray, is that they'll customize it to what you want to do. So while that's not necessarily their advice, say, you know what, for us to be comfortable where we're at on March 29th, we need to keep that there. And so I think we just communicate that with them, that that's kind of the one piece that would be unique that we know of right now. But yeah, I would be comfortable moving forward with Ray.
So how's it going for you, David?
Yeah.
Again, restate, I really do feel like both of these candidates are going to do what we need to do. I do think the experience will feel different for us depending on which choice we make. I'm really comfortable with either choice. My preference, I think, is that Al is going to give us the national reach with his McPherson connections, but also have the expertise to really understand our region. And like I said, I think the connection to our community, having been a principal here, is going to mean he's going to do his best work for us. I think that would be valuable in this process. So that's where I'm leaning.
Okay.
And I think, Jeff, you brought up 2 really good points, because if I remember looking through their stuff, now that you brought that up, I don't think it was the recent Bellevue, because they have the dates listed.
No, it was Mills. It was the current superintendent is the one that they listed in the reference list.
Oh, they do? What about Federal Way?
I'm
Or Kent, or
I'm not
which?
sure, I'm not sure.
Federal Way was the other one.
Federal Way.
Yeah.
So I agree with Sandy on the fact, and the way that Ken stated it, that you could even say to them, we had, you know, there's I don't know if you want, there's other search firm that would do get interim candidates alongside and do a parallel. And maybe just as selling it to them. But I do think that is unique to our board and important. And that also, like Sandy said, that one of the things we put in there is that they keep in mind that we are in a transition over the next school year, and that's a really critical time for us over this next 18 months. Because I didn't ask that question to him, but I asked it to Al. So, but I do think that I like their confidence, but the overconfidence, we just want to make sure that as a board, we feel comfortable. But then we need to remember, you guys, they're working for us. It's not, I mean, if we need to pull it and say, put it on hold, and I like the way that Jeff framed it, put it on hold, we're restarting in the fall. It might not even be because we don't feel there's good candidates. It might be because we feel, you know what, the timeline is really, we didn't get the community input that we felt we needed, or whatever those factors might be. So, but I do think we just go for it and see what happens, and I think we're all committed to the process, and it sounds like, you know, Leanna said that they're committed to the process, and we do this and get a pool together, and if we need to turn her around, we're hiring them. And they said the interims for free, so.
So, and I'm still, you know, the input from Jeff Leanna actually did help me. I was leaning towards Green Associates to begin with, and I was a little cautious about the overselling, maybe.
They're salesmen.
Salesman, that's good, you
There's
know,
no doubt.
there's nothing wrong with that, there's nothing wrong with that, but, right?
Oh, sorry.
No, see, but I put on that side of the table myself, so there's nothing wrong with that.
Stereotyped you.
But, but luckily, we do have, and thank goodness for the background searches you guys did, so yeah, it's just enough of the scale for me is tipped towards Ray over McPherson and Jacobson, so that's where I'm at.
We
For all
want
the
to take a
reasons.
formal vote.
I think we do.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do a formal vote. So do we want to do a show of hands for each?
Yes.
So I'll make a motion that we accept Ray Associates with the one caveat clarification that we would like to do a parallel search, keeping the interim and permanent going at the same time.
Wait, let me write that down.
Sorry.
Last paragraph, that's not right. I don't know shorthand.
Leanna, how long did that superintendent work out there?
In Tacoma?
We did two. So the superintendent search with Tacoma, they ended up doing a settlement with the superintendent, but they hired an interim superintendent, and he turned into the formal superintendent. He lasted for quite a few years before retiring.
And you did two searches?
So there were two searches, a formal national search, and then there was an interim search.
Oh, I see.
The interim search was there was still community processing to both.
Okay.
So Ken made a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
So all in favor of going with Green Associates? Say aye. Okay. Opposed? It's okay.
I would say opposed.
I'm saying,
I have a different choice.
It's
but
okay.
I'm going to use the word opposed,
It's fine.
but that's the only
It's
choice.
fine.
you can vote
You
present.
can say that you don't, it's fine.
Yeah.
Just remember,
Present.
you
Yeah,
support the
that's exactly
majority.
right.
So not opposed, but.
Yes.
We'll put you, we can put you down on record as okay. So then,
You just took your first.
again,
And
Thank-
Alan will bring up technology with the superintendent themselves.
Whatever, it'll be disciplined. They're all
that's what we put
along
in the
with it.
criteria.
Yeah. I'll be fine with it.
Okay, so, thank you, everyone. Again, lots to process in 9 days. Much appreciated. And then we are adjourned at 4:24. We have 6 minutes to move
And
upstairs.
he said that they could meet April 4th, so I think we might want to, I don't know why he said, maybe that's on the
It's on their
schedule, yeah.
schedule. Yeah, so I am going to call him on the cell phone tonight, so
Okay.
we'll get that. sorted.
But that's actually a very important issue, because I leave early morning on the 5th to the New Mexico conference, and I'm there Tuesday, 5th through the end of the week. So we probably should look to calendars for the 4th to try and schedule our
It's
next
a Monday, right?
interaction. It is.
I don't know. And then
It
if
is
you
a
could
Monday.
clarify also that these are the 2 people that we're working with.
Yes, I have that down. So just so you know, I have down on my clarification list, communicate who's going to do what, the division of labor between search firm and consultant. I'm just tabling the temp help idea. Once we get that breakdown, ensure the reps are going to stay with us, that Tony Ryan would stay with us, work on the timing about community engagement over spring break.
Like none,
No community engagement over spring break, we'll have to talk about that right away. And then the parallel interim, if we have to put on hold the search. And the reinforcement that we have a lot going on as a district over the next 18 months, that's why we have to be very clear about vision.
We have no instructional support, but I understand that next week the high schools are testing?
Yes, 4th through 8th.
Yes, is that right? So, because I heard also, which I loved, was wanting to have students involved. And so if they're doing SBAC testing next week, that may not be the best week to have them be involved with.
But Tony's local.
Right.
But then that's after spring
It's going to be after spring break.
Understood, I'm saying, but just in terms of if and when, oh, I see, you're trying to get it
Are any
ASAP.
of us gone during spring break? You
I
are.
have a day trip here and there, of a Monday and Wednesday.
You're gone on spring break.
No.
Are you available by phone?
The other question,
7-hour time difference.
Oh, where are you
Sorry,
going?
this is the Iceland trip.
Iceland.
Oh,
you know,
Lord.
this is actually an interesting time. The notion of having, and this was mentioned by some of the other sorts of having the point of contact and whether or not you want the board to do that with a non-quorum or with a quorum to be able to move things forward. Like, what is the ad like? What are the, all the non-definitive kinds of things? And that was recommended in the one board. It was just the board president that had done that. The other way is to do 2 out of 4. That just kind of the logistical team just to keep, making those things. And we always have review, and ratify type of approach. So.
Oh, absolutely.
So I don't know if we want to do one of us or 2 of us as kind of the logistic board team, just to keep things moving. And I have no skin in the game.
I'm cool with being a spokesperson, but I'm happy to have it help. So, but I'm going to continue to write down my.
Why don't you two?
Well, I guess I don't know what we're getting into, and I hesitate to pick a path until I can have a roadmap. If it's green versus blue, I probably don't need to be involved with that, but I want to be able to hear what the community is saying.
No.
So
yeah.
maybe, as spokesperson, I'm only logistical anyways. I would only communicate things that we'd already decided on for sure. So once we get that division of labor between the search firm and the district, whether it be us or anyone else, then perhaps we can see if there's any need for additional coordination assignments. Does that sound good? Yeah, we can definitely, once we get.
Well,
that
you
list.
could always, anytime you want, ask for a second, any one of us. Right, so you
I
say,
can
this
put a
is
live
one that I'm not sure I should do all by myself, I'll just call whoever picks up their phone first is the one who gets to advise.
Sounds great.
Okay, cool.
Stairs. All right. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned at 4:28.